Today we're going to be installing a GrassFlap on an XP610 Altoz mower. First thing we want to do is remove the factory discharge chute. This has a pin on it that you can remove. We'll go ahead and spread out our hardware that we're going to use. So we've got a 1.5 inch spacer we stack up. We go ahead and take the no drill mount and install it using the pin from the factory discharge chute. It should slide in place. Then once we have that done, we're going to take the bolt provided and insert it from the underside of the deck up onto the top side through the spacers provided, and go ahead and tighten that down. This provides a surface then for us to mount the GrassFlap to. So we've got a couple of 3/8 carriage bolts that we'll use to attach the GrassFlap to it. Now we're going to go ahead and set up for the plastic block-off plate. Put two 2x4s under the mower deck and lower the deck till it either just touches or is slightly above the wood blocks. Then we'll place the plastic blocker plate onto those 2x4s, and then we'll go ahead and adjust the position of the hinge plate assembly so that it's snug against the side of the mower. With that done, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and position the deflector angle. The purpose of the deflector angle is to keep grass flippings from blowing up out the top of the block off as you begin to open it. And we're going to cut notches as needed to clear any obstructions. Typically there's a edge of the GrassFlap mount itself that you got to work around. So we'll make those cuts. So the deflector angle sits between the plastic blocker plate and the hinge plate. It attaches with the two-sided tape to the hinge plate, and then the blocker plate's going to sandwich it against there. So basically the adhesive is just to keep it from slipping. So we'll position it, start the deflector angle at the front of the discharge opening and carry it back as far as it'll go. Then we'll close the hinge plate, attach it to the deflector angle, Now we're going to go ahead and remove the excess adhesive that's on there. It's straightforward. Take a knife, cut along the edge, and you can simply roll it with your thumb and peel it off of there. So we'll do that on the front side here and also on the back side. With that done, then we're ready to go ahead and attach the blocker plate itself. So the first thing we'll do is drill 2 holes, 1/4 inch diameter holes, for the T-nuts. We're going to go ahead and install those T-nuts. When you do this, you want to make sure that you put the blocker plate onto a board, something that's soft, because when you drive the T-nuts through, they will go slightly deeper than the plastic block-off plate. If you do it on concrete floor, you'll mess up the side of the T-nuts. Make sure when you install these that the T-nut, the head of the T-nut is on the back side of the block-off plate. So it's going to sandwich and pull the T-nut into the blocker plate. So we'll go ahead and run the screws in for those first 2 pilot holes that we drilled. Now once that's done, we'll go ahead and drill the remaining 6 holes that we have to install T-nuts in. With the additional 6 holes drilled, we'll remove the plastic blocker plate again, put it on the 2x4 block, and finish installing the remaining 6 T-nuts. There's a tool that comes with the T-nuts to let you slip the T-nut onto the end of the tool and drive it in without much work. We'll go ahead and make sure that the openings on all of the T-nuts are clear, that there's no burrs or material in them. With that done, then we're going to go ahead and reinstall the screws into the plastic blocker plate. So I typically start all the screws first and then go ahead and tighten them down. Once you have them all tight, you want to double check that it's pulled the T-nut all the way into the plastic blocker plate, or it could potentially work loose later on. So I missed a couple of them here, so I'm going to go back and tighten those up and make sure that they are all tight. Now with that done, then we're going to go ahead and install the spring mount. So the first thing we have to do is remove the nut off of the spring mount bolt. Then we'll position the spring mount onto that bolt. We'll go ahead and tighten this up. There's a slot there so you can adjust that spring mount up or down as needed for your cable routing. We're going to go ahead and attach the spring. To do this, I use a pair of channel locks and grip the open end of the spring hook, just barely grabbing the tip and pulling it over the spring bolt itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and readjust the position of the blocker plate assembly so that it's flush against the side of the mower and I don't have any gaps after having added the deflector angle to it. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and attach the cable to the spring mount. So we're just going to thread the fitting in and position it, put the rubber boot on, and then we're going to move on to installing the pedal. We don't want to hook this end as far as the cable is concerned until we have the pedal connected. So here we've got the cable laying underneath. We're going to go ahead and route it across. Now we're going to go ahead and connect the cable to the pedal itself. This is I did this on a bench as opposed to on the machine itself. So this is just going to show you how to connect the cable. Obviously you'll be doing it on your mower instead. So we're going to remove nut number 1, spin nut number 2 on until it's almost at the bottom end of the threads. Slide the fitting, slide the wire into the slot that we have. Go ahead and start nut 1 back onto the threaded fitting. As you're threading that nut on, you also want to pull the rubber boot back along. It's a little hard to reach if you don't. Then we'll go ahead and pull that rubber boot back in place and run the nut down, get it snug in that position. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and connect the cable itself to the pedal. Go ahead and return the spring to this position here. Then we're going to slip the clevis. That's the removable clevis. We're going to slip it onto the ball of the cable, and then we're going to work it back into where we can put the pin in. The pin goes in from the outside here with the head on the outside of the pedal, if you will. With the pin in place, then we're going to go ahead and install the cotter pin. I found it easier using a pair of needle nose pliers to do this. We'll slip it in place. We're going to split the cotter pin so I can bend one leg on one side and the other leg on the other side. This keeps it from inadvertently rattling out. Now we're ready to install onto the mower itself. So there is a no-drill mount. The two yellow bolts, two bolts in the yellow circles rather, hold the no-drill mount plate to the backside of the foot plate, and then the two orange ones are actually what ties the pedal itself to that plate. This is what it looks like from the front side, the operator side of it. Notice the cable runs off to the left. So you can see here it runs off to the left and behind the foot pan, and then around underneath the foot pan area over to the grass flap. Now we're going to go ahead and connect the flap end, the cable on the flap end. First thing we do is insert the brass bushing into the hole. Then we're going to insert the 3/16, which is the smaller, darker pin, with the head of the pin on the same side as the spring. And then we're going to go ahead and install the cotter pin. We're going to split the cotter pin and fold each leg around opposite sides of the pin. Again, this keeps it from inadvertently working its way out. Now the next thing we want to do is secure the cable so that it's up out of the way. So this is a little magnetic zip tie. You can actually use this magnet to tie to the cable itself and then place the magnet on the mower where you need it to keep the cable up out of the way. So in this case, we're going to put it over here on the left side. You also need to check the cable, the rest of the routing, just to make sure that it's not going to get into the belts. With the cable routed, then the last step is to go to the fittings and make sure that you have secured the jam nuts to hold the fitting in place, as well as pushed the rubber boot back onto the fitting.